Hi students, how are you? I hope you are all fine and safe. My dear students, today we are discussing ninth class. Our government of Andhra Pradesh changed the syllabus in the academic year of 2023-24. We know that government syllabus completely changed this academic year in ninth class. Our syllabus is completely CBSE pattern. So today we are discussing one of the important chapter in ninth class. We know that living organisms like plants, animals, human being and microorganisms, single cellular or unicellular organisms and multicellular organisms. Every living organisms are made up of cell. Every living organisms are made up of cell. Today our topic, the fundamental unit of life. The fundamental unit of life. What is the fundamental unit of life? Cell. Cell is the basic structural and functional unit of life. Already we have learned in your previous class cell, the structural and functional unit. In this class, learn more the fundamental unit of life. What are living organisms made up of? Living organisms are made up of cell. Cell is the basic structural and functional unit. We know that all living organisms are made up of cell. Unicellular or single cellular organisms are made up of only one cell. Example, microorganisms. We know that microorganisms means very smallest living organisms. We can't see with our naked eye. We can see with the help of microscope. We can see with the help of microscope. See the picture, my dear students. Microscope. Microscope is an instrument or apparatus. This instrument is useful for seeing the tiny objects, smallest objects. That objects we can't see with our naked eye. Compound microscope. Different types of parts are there in the microscope. We can observe the structure of microscope. Eyepiece, body tube, coarse adjustments, fine adjustment, arm, objective lens, clip microscope slide, clip microscope slide, stage, condenser, mirror and base. These are the parts of microscope. Eyepiece, coarse adjustment, body tube, fine adjustment, arm, objective lens, clip, microscope slide, stage, condenser, mirror and base. These are the parts of microscope. Microscope is useful for seeing the tiny objects. Tiny objects. We can observe different types of unicellular or single cellular organisms under microscope, like amoeba, paramecium, bacteria, virus, protozoa, etc. Another type of living organism, multicellular organisms. Multi means more than one. Multi means more than one. What are the examples of multicellular organisms? Plants, animals, and humans. All these are the multicellular organisms. Every living organisms are made up of cell. So cell is the basic structural and functional unit. Who was discovered cell? Discovery of cell. Cell were discovered by Robert Hooke. Cell were discovered by Robert Hooke in 1665. He observed these cells in a cork slice with the help of a primitive microscope. Cells were discovered by Robert Hooke in the year 1665. He observed these cells in a cork slice with the help of a primitive microscope. He was taken the material bark of a oak tree. Bark of a oak tree. After, in the year 1674, Anthony van Leeuwenhoek, with the improved microscope, discovered the free living cells in pond water for the first time. It was Robert Brown in the year 1831 who discovered the nucleus in the cells. Okay, my dear students, the invention of magnifying lenses led to the discovery of the microscope world. It is now known that a single cell may constitute a whole organism, as in amoeba, paramecium, bacteria, etc. We know that all these organisms are called unicellular organisms. Uni means single. Uni means single. On the other hand, many cells group together in a single body and assume different functions in it to form various body parts. In multicellular organisms, multi means many, such as some plants, animals, humans, and some of the fungi. Okay, every multicellular organisms have come from a single cell. Very important point, my dear students. Keep it in your mind. Every multicellular organism has come from a single cell. How cells divide to produce cells of their own kind? All cells thus come from pre-existing cells? Yes. Cells divide to produce cells of their own kind. All cells thus come from pre-existing cells. Okay, my dear students. Next, some organisms can also have cells of different kinds. Look at the following pictures. It depicts some cells from the human body. smooth muscle cell, blood cells, nerve cell, ovum cell, bone cell, sperm cell, and fat cell. Various cells from the human body: blood cells, smooth muscle cells, nerve cell, ovum cell, bone cell, sperm cell, and fat cells. These are the various cells from the human body. Okay, my dear students, next, the shape and size of cells are related to the specific functions they perform. Some cells, like amoeba, have changed shapes. In some cases, the cell shape could be more or less fixed and peculiar for a particular type of cell. For example, nerve cells has a typical shape. Very important point, my dear students. Once again, the shape and size of cells are related to the specific function they perform. Some cells, like amoeba, have changing shapes. In some cases, the cell shape could be more or less fixed and peculiar for a particular type of cell. For example, nerve cells have a typical shape. Each living cell has the capacity to perform certain basic functions that are characteristics of all living forms. How does a living cell perform these basic functions? We know that there is a division of labor in multicellular organisms such as human beings. This means that different parts of the human body perform different functions. The human body has a heart to pump blood, a stomach to digest food, and so on. Similarly, division of labor is also seen within a single cell. In fact, each such cell has got certain specific components within it known as cell organelles. Each kind of cell organelle perform a specific function, such as making new material in the cell, clearing up the waste material from the cell, and so on. A cell is able to live and perform all its functions because of these organelles. These organelles together constitute the basic unit called cell. So, cell is the basic unit of life. Cell is the fundamental unit of life. It is interesting that all cells are formed to have same organelles. It is interesting that all cells are found to have the same organelles, no matter what their function is or what organisms they are found in. No matter what their function is or what organisms they are found in. What is a cell made up of? What is the structural organization of a cell? We saw above the cell has special components called organelles. A special components are present in the cell that is called organelles. How is a cell organized? If you study a cell under a microscope, we would come across three features or characteristics in almost every cell: plasma membrane or cell membrane, nucleus, and cytoplasm. In every cell contain plasma membrane or cell membrane, nucleus, and cytoplasm. All activities inside the cell and interactions of the cell with the environment are possible due to these features. All activities inside the cell and interactions of the cell with the environment are possible due to these features. Let us see how. Plasma membrane or cell membrane. This is the outermost covering layer of the cell that separates the content of cell from its external environment. Plasma membrane or cell membrane. This is the outermost covering of the cell that separates the contents of cell from external environment. The plasma membrane allows or permits the entry and exit of some materials in and out of the cell. It also prevents movement of some other materials. The cell membrane therefore is called a selectively permeable membrane. The cell membrane therefore is called a selectively permeable membrane. How does the movement of substances takes place into the cell? How do substances move out of the cell? How does the movement of substances takes place into the cell? How do substances move out of the cell? Some substances like carbon dioxide or oxygen can move across the cell membrane by a process called diffusion. Some substances like carbon dioxide or oxygen can move across the cell membrane by a process called diffusion. What is meant by diffusion? Diffusion is a physical process. Diffusion is a physical process. The movement of the molecules from higher concentration to lower concentration. The movement of the molecules from higher concentration to lower concentration without any semi-permeable membrane. And finally, both concentrations are equal. We have studied the process of diffusion in earlier chapters. We saw that there is a spontaneous movement of a substance from a region of higher concentration to a region where its concentration is low. We saw that there is a spontaneous movement of a substance from a region of high concentration to a region where its concentration is low. Something similar to this happens in cells when, for example, some substances like carbon dioxide, which is cellular waste and requires to be excreted out by the cell. Something similar to this happens in cells when, for example, some substance like carbon dioxide, which is cellular waste and requires to be excreted out by the cell, accumulates in higher concentrations inside the cell. In these cells' external environment, the concentration of carbon dioxide is low as compared to that inside the cell. As soon as there is a difference of concentration of carbon dioxide inside and outside of a cell, carbon dioxide moves out of the cell from a region of high concentration to a region of low concentration outside the cell by the process of diffusion. Similarly, oxygen enters the cell by the process of diffusion. When the level or concentration of oxygen inside the cell decreases. Thus, diffusion plays an important role in gases exchange between the cells as well as the cell and its external environment. Very, very important point, my dear students. Keep it in your mind. Diffusion plays an important role in the gases exchange between the cells as well as the cell and its external environment. Water also obeys the law of diffusion. Water also obeys the law of diffusion. The movement of water molecules through such a selectively permeable membrane is called osmosis. What is osmosis? Osmosis is a physical and physiological process. Physical and physiological process. The movement of the materials or substances from lower concentration to higher concentration with a semi-permeable membrane. The movement of the molecules from higher concentration to lower concentration with a semi-permeable membrane. The materials of water across the plasma membrane is also affected by the amount of substance dissolved in water. Thus, osmosis is the net diffusion of water across a selectively permeable membrane towards higher solute concentration. Higher solute concentration means the movement of the materials or substances from lower concentration to higher concentration with semi-permeable membrane. And finally, both concentrations are equal. Okay, my dear students, this is the first part of the fundamental unit of life. This is newly introduced our government of Andhra Pradesh in this academic year 2023 and 24 in 9th class. This is completely NCERT based syllabus, CBSE pattern way. So everyone should learn these syllabus and subject. Thank you, my dear students. Good morning, my dear students. How are